Recorded live.
Welcome to today's edition of Draft Utopia. Chris Ransom along with Joseph Potter here. This is episode 335, and this is going to be an NFL draft preview show. How it's going to work is I'm going to list picks in different mock drafts on Draft Utopia, and if Joey doesn't have an order ready, I'm going to give him two teams, and he'll tell me which team he thinks finishes ahead of the other team, and then we'll pencil that team into that slot. The Jets are on the clock in every mock draft, so there's no stress here, and every mock has them taking a quarterback. 3 Darnold, Ryan and Lamar Jackson here. You could play devil's advocate, go Baker Mayfield. I mean, it's so bad in New York that Benjamin Albright tweeted last night that Christian Hackenberg makes Paxton Lynch look like God. And anytime you have a quarterback that makes Paxton Lynch look like God, you have a quarterback problem.
Yeah, the Jets are just, they're a mess. These guys are gonna have to get a leader. Hackenberg's disciplined. That's the only thing Hackenberg has. He isn't accurate, doesn't have a great arm, doesn't read defense as well. I mean, what is it that can, I don't know what to do with them, but I would say if you want, with what the Jets are doing, well, I would love to play devil's advocate. I would have to go Sam Darnold out of that, simply because upside. The Jets aren't going anywhere. They need a quarterback. Darnold doesn't have the mechanics. He's going to be a boomer bust prospect. But you know what? The Jets, what do they have to lose? I mean, they're basically where the Browns have been for the last 20 years. You take a boomer bust prospect in that situation because if he pans out, you get one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. If he doesn't, well, 3 years, you can take another quarterback.
I agree with that logic entirely, and with the New York Jets, they need a quarterback, and then they need to get offensive linemen day 2, and then pray to heck that the quarterback can work with the receivers they got in the 2017 draft, even though it may not work out. And at number 2, there's 3 different mocks. 3 of them have the Bears at 2, and Tony Mario's mock is the 49ers at number 2. Every one of those mocks has both of those teams picking top 3, though. So do you want to put the Bears at 2 or the 49ers at 2?
As much as I would love to see the Bears at 2 again this year because they just destroyed their draft last year, I'd say the 49ers. Their quarterback position kind of makes me cringe at the moment. And if you don't have a leader, I don't care about the rest of the team. Hate to bring the Browns up again, but they've been leaderless for 20 years. You see where they are.
Yeah, and you look at the 49ers. I have them going with a quarterback in round 2, as does Ryan. I think Mark has them going Josh Rosen. Tony Mario has them going Josh Allen, and Ryan gave them Mike McGlinchey as a right tackle. I gave them Christian Kirk as a wide receiver and a quarterback in round 2. So 49ers are an interesting team that nobody agrees on.
Yeah, and this situation with John Lynch, knowing his mentality, he's going to want a tough guy. He's going to want a skilled player, but he's also going to want somebody that's tough. That's something you have to look at. Remember, there's tough Bucs teams He was one of the toughest guys out there. He's going to want somebody smart. He's going to want somebody tough. So, in that situation, I would go between two players. I would go between Allen from Wyoming, and then I would go with, sorry, my cat has decided that she wants to try to take over my face again. Then I would go with the guy I'm going to put in here. This is where I'm going devil's advocate. Baker Mayfield. Because you want toughness, you want skill, you want the ability to make up for teammates and offensive line not quite being where they're supposed to be. You want arm. Hey, guess what? You want accuracy? You're getting Mayfield. One Sports Illustrated writer has Mayfield to win the Heisman Trophy. Okay? So, it's the guy has it. The only thing he doesn't have is height. 6'1". Well, honestly, I don't see that as a problem. At least not right now, especially if they get a coach that knows how to work an offense. And it's like, you put him back, he can play in the shotgun. You know, the shotgun's not as bad of an offense in the NFL as it used to be. You know, it's just the plays that you run out of, the philosophy you use. So, I think Baker Mayfield is the type of guy that the San Francisco 49ers would go after, especially if he wins the Heisman.
Yep, and number 3, the Chicago Bears. They did make a move this week that may affect their draft decision. Mark Suba has them going Mike McGlinchey, as do I. Tony Mario gave them Arden Key as a pass rusher, and Ryan Romero gave them Christian Kirk, the Texas A&M wide receiver. So there's all sorts of limbo here, but the big offseason move that they made, not really an offseason move, but a pre-regular season move, they re-signed left tackle Charles Leno Jr. to a 4-year extension. And I don't think that's the guy you'd bring back. I think he's one of the worst left tackles in the NFL, and they gave him a 4-year extension, so they've pretty much signed a contract that allows Clay Matthews, Ziggy Ansah, and Everson Griffin to stone Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, I don't want to sound that barbaric, but you trade up for a second-round quarterback, and then you re-sign a bottom 5 left tackle to a 4-year deal. You're basically imitating the Cleveland Browns. So I gave them McGlinchey here as a left tackle, but he'd probably go to them as a right tackle now with the re-signing of Leno Jr., which sort of throws a curveball into my mock draft. But what are you thinking with Chicago at 3?
Yeah, the Leno, what's his name, signing caught me off guard as well. I wasn't expecting it. I was fully ready to give the Bears McGlinchey. But with that signing, it's like you re-sign a left tackle that's really a mediocre left tackle, you know, to a long-term extension with a good bit of money. So that eliminates McGlinchey. You don't want to be paying your both offensive tackles massive sums, because then you end up in a situation where you're strapped for cash on the salary cap line when you're trying to rebuild. You know, you want to rebuild, yes. You want to rebuild the offensive line, yes. But you can't put, if you know you're rebuilding and you're going to have all these future contracts coming up, you can't have everything set in 2 positions for the next 5-6 years. So, in that situation, got to go Christian Kirk. Kirk makes the most sense logistically in this situation, and he's a damn good talent. He'll make an instant impact, and he will help Trubisky. So it's not a bad pick. It's just one that it wouldn't have been my first pick if they hadn't re-signed Lito.
Yeah. And with that being said, number 4 in my mock draft, Ryan's Marks is the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 4 in Tony Mario's mock draft is the Los Angeles Rams. You can pick either one of those teams and put them at 4. Who's going to be on the clock at number 4?
Out of those two, I go with the Rams.
All right. McGlinchey or a quarterback here at number 4, because Josh Allen's still on the board, and they could use McGlinchey as well to solidify that offensive line. So this is an interesting scenario here at number 4.
Yeah. I really want to give him Adams because I think he would fit that I really think he'd fit that offense extremely well. I think he'd be great for that franchise. Then you got McGlinchey. It's like, damn. I really want to give him McGlinchey too. McGlinchey will fit any franchise, period. So, you're right. This is a tough one. If it would come down to the Rams having to choose between these two guys, I would kind of feel sorry for the Rams. So I'm going to go with, because I know Ryan and all of us talked about this last week, I'm going to say that Goff takes a step forward. They give Goff one more year. So in this scenario, we'll take McGlinchey.
Yep, and Mike McGlinchey to the Rams, he can play both offensive tackle positions with his versatility, and he's a player that, depending on where Andrew Whitworth is, he'll either play right tackle or left tackle, but he'll be the blind side of the future, whether it be for Jared Goff or another QB remains to be seen, but that's sort of where they're at. Number 5, we can put the Bengals here, or we can put the team that Tony has picking at number 5. That's the Cleveland Browns. So, are we going to put your team on the clock here at number 5?
I actually think that the Browns end up having a better record than the Bengals. So, I'll go with the Bengals here.
So, the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock at number 5. I have them going Derwin James out of Florida State. I had them going Chukwuma Okorafor out of Western Michigan for weeks now because I think he is a complete package at left tackle, but Derwin James just seemed like he had more potential, and after he talked about how he was involved in 3 car accidents as a kid, even if he did have a torn meniscus last year, I was able to look past that because when you have that kind of mental toughness as a kid and you survive 3 car accidents, that's just something you can't teach in terms of mental toughness. So that's why I really, biggest reason for moving Derwin James up the boards, because not only does he have the size and the ability to break up passes, he has the mental toughness as well. Ryan put Okorafor there. Mark gave them Arden Key out of LSU. He's an edge rusher, but he's also a 34 guy at outside linebacker, so this is a really difficult situation for the Bengals to be in. But Arden Key's nickname is the Tiger, so, I mean, it's kind of fitting if the Bengals take him. But what are you thinking with Cincinnati at 5? They took Willis and Lawson last year at pass rusher, so I doubt they'd go that route at 5.
Yeah, so do I. I like Key, but I don't think they go there. I'm kind of, in a way, on the same level what you're thinking with Keys, but not Keys, James, because at the same time, James is not only survived the car, not only has mental toughness, but I mean, gotta look at the school he goes to. Again, the physical toughness is going to be there. So you got the mental toughness, you got the physical toughness, and he is a great, great talent on top of all that. So I'd have to go that way.
Yep. Bengals, Derwin James out of Florida State at 5. The number 6 team on the board here, we've got, I had the Detroit Lions picking at 5, and then in Tony's mock, he has the Browns picking at 5. I'm guessing you're picking Cleveland between those two teams because you're very high on the Lions this year.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Browns in this situation. The Browns are interesting because their defense this preseason has shown to be high octane. They are coming for you. And Deshaun Kaiser, which we were talking about before the podcast started, I mean, he's the youngest quarterback in the NFL. And Jared Thomas came out and said, I don't think I'm going to block for another quarterback for the rest of my career, which is no pressure rookie.
Yeah, I gave the Browns Okorafor at 9 in my mock draft last week, and that's only because all the other blue chip players were either guards or linebackers, and I knew the Browns wouldn't go that route. But at the same time, there were guys like Geis, Barkley, Cortland Sutton on the board, so they could take one of those guys in a position of need as well. But this is a very tough situation for the Browns at this spot. There is a blue chip safety on the board in Ronnie Harrison out of Alabama. There's definitely some good talent still on the board, but what are you thinking with the Browns at 6?
I'm thinking if the Browns were in this situation, they'd probably trade down, but that's not really an option here. Because like you said, this is a tough situation, and it's like I called the Browns trading down last year and the year before because they're not going to reach for a player. Harrison out of Alabama. The Browns do need a free safety.
Harrison can play both safety roles, and Alabama even used him as a pass rusher off the edge, like as an outside linebacker, like a third outside linebacker. So he can do it all.
Yeah, and so I would probably go Harrison free safety simply because he's the athlete that they like. He's a guy who can go all over the field. And
Jabril Peppers.
Yeah, why did I say Julius? I'll never know. Peppers showed that he showed during the preseason he's not starting right now. But he showed that he has a willingness to actually cover in the NFL, actually play defense in zone, which he didn't show in college. So, and last night he came up with his first interception, overthrown by Winston, where he was actually in position to make a play on the ball, and he came up with the interception. So you put him with Harrison back there, and you add that with those pass rushers that the Browns have, and Joe Schobert, who may end up starting at either strong or weak side within the year. To be honest with you, the way he's emerging is being all over the place, and the Browns. I mean, that could be one of the final pieces to a very tough Browns defense.
Well said, Joey. And this is a tough situation at 7 because everyone's here had the Lions at 5, but the team at number 7 was the team at 6 in Tony's mock was the Houston Texans. So you basically have to choose between whether to give the Lions this pick or the Browns another top 10 pick here. And I'm guessing in this situation you'd go with the latter again. So Cleveland back on the clock. Or do you want to pick a different team?
And we'll go ahead and go with Cleveland. We'll go with you on this one. I always hated back-to-back top 10 picks. It's especially when you're on a team that's on the cusp of doing something great. Simply because if you're young like that and you don't have as many holes to fill as you did in previous years because you've had a couple great drafts, and I think that's what's going to happen in Cleveland. It makes it difficult to do, to pick that, which brings the trade possibility, which we're not doing here. Who did your guys have of taking?
With the Texans pick, we had the Texans pick at 10, and we had the Browns at 9 or 10, and then we had the Texans at 17 in our mock drafts, so it sort of balanced out better that way. But in this mock with Cleveland's pick, I had Saquon Barkley at 17 behind Darius Geis. Ryan had sort of a different player in his mock. I know Mark had the Browns taking, I think it may have been Geis or a receiver here, and Tony gave him Josh Rosen, but he changed that pick this week to somebody else, so it's really tough to say what the Browns are going to do in this situation.
It is. Let me pull up something here. Pull this up. Get things going here. There are a couple guys I really like, but they don't have I would give them a Carifer, Western Michigan. I mean, tough situation, but I think that's going to be a weak link that, well, we're going to need to sort out in that situation. And Carifer is a guy I think will end up being really good.
Yep, that's why, because I remember Mark mentioning him briefly as a potential top 5 prospect when talking about Darnold and Rosen for the 2018 class, and I put on his tape and I instantly loved what I saw tape-wise, so I gave the Browns him and Saquon Barkley. That does wonders for their running game and takes a ton of pressure off of Kaiser, and then you can move Okorafor over to left tackle when Joe Thomas decides to call it a career, so that's a perfect situation for the Browns. Detroit's picking at 5 in my mock. Denver's picking at 7 in Tony's mock. Miami is picking at 8, and you basically said on our podcast that you expect Denver to win the division and the Lions to get a wild card. So should we just go ahead and put Miami in at 8 like every other mock on this site, just because the Dolphins situation with Tannehill?
Yes, because, you know, that's just that's a bad situation for Miami, but can't do much with it. I mean, so go ahead and give them an 8. Do it again.
All right, the Dolphins are on the clock at 8. Both of the free safeties are gone. They could get Quentin Nelson, the Notre Dame left guard, who I'm really high on, as I've compared him to Faneca and Mike Munchak. That's how highly I think of him. He's on the board at 8 if they want to shore up the offensive line and get another guard. There's a ton of positions they could go after. They could go after a corner like Jair Alexander out of Louisville. There's a lot of different things the Dolphins can do here at number 8, and I mean, I think I gave them Nelson in my newest mock this week, simply because there's a huge drop-off between Nelson and the second best guard in this draft, who's a mid to late third-round pick. So that's why I sort of gave them a Nelson at 8 because I think the value for a blue chip guard is that high. If there's a drop off between the top guard and the second best guard, that's a 2-round drop off. So that's why I gave Miami a guard. But I guess there's other positions they could look at. I mean, Ryan gave them Josh Allen in the second round of his mock draft. So I don't think they'd go with a quarterback in round 1 after all the money they invested in Tannehill, but I could definitely see them going with an offensive lineman at the guard position.
I actually had this narrowed down to 2 guys, or 2 positions. Okay, 3 guys, 2 positions. And we're looking at running back with Dyson Barkley, and then we get the guy I'm going with, that's Quentin Nelson. Nelson, I think, is the best player available at this point, and the Dolphins need the best player available. Just happens to fit a position of great need.
Yep, exactly. And number 9 in Tony's mock was the Chargers. I'm guessing you're putting them ahead of Denver. Is that a good team to go with here at 9? The Chargers. I'm going to see who I have.
Yeah.
We'll just go with the we'll go with the Chargers at 9 in your mock. I'll look through some of the teams that I have so we can try to find average draft positions for different things. But for now at number 9, we'll put the Los Angeles Chargers on the clock here. And this is a difficult scenario because all the safeties are on.
I know where I'm going with this one.
All right.
I know where I'm going with this one.
Take it away, Joey.
With the Chargers, they didn't do anything for the future in the draft this year. Right now, Phillip Rivers, he's getting up 34, 35 years old. Phillip Rivers ain't going to be there too much longer. His body's going to start breaking down. Right now, you got a couple blue-chip quarterbacks that are right there. A couple great leaders, great athletes. Now, if you want to go with the Chargers offense, you want to go with what they're doing, what they want to do, where they're going to go in the future. I'm going to go out and I am going to give them Josh Allen, quarterback, Wyoming.
Yeah, that's a good pick for them. Very level-headed, laid back. That's a good pick for them. I was thinking you might go Josh Rosen for a second and then point out how Rosen has that same fiery attitude that Rivers had when he first entered the league. But we didn't go there. We went Josh Allen. Safe pick, good choice.
Because the fiery attitude is excellent. You gotta love it. But you also have to remember, Rivers never got rid of it. He's older now. He hides it better, but he never got rid of that fiery attitude. And there were times when, in the past, especially when they needed him to be level-headed, especially when they were Super Bowl contenders with Damian Tomlinson. Tomlinson had to calm him down. And in a lot of ways, that hurt their chances of getting to the Super Bowl. You bring Josh Allen in here, a guy that's just as athletic, just as much arm strength, but it's more level-headed. A little bit bigger. Who can learn behind Rivers for a year or two. Rivers retires, you've got an Aaron Rodgers situation.
And that's a very valid point.
Yeah. And, it's like, you got one of the best quarterbacks in the draft, balls to you, sit him for a couple years, let him learn behind one of the best in the league. Time comes, best in the league goes, you've got yourself a superstar waiting to take over.
Yep, and ignoring Detroit and Denver based on draft position, the next highest pick in Tony's mock is the Jaguars. The next highest pick in my mock draft after that is the Baltimore Ravens, who I have picking at 6. I feel like, since you said the Jaguars could go 500 this year, we'll wait to give them a QB or another position, and we'll put the Ravens on the clock at 10.
The Ravens are give them Key. I think it is. That's the thing of the
Arden Key, the LSU pass rusher. That's who I have them taking as well. And then you pair him up
back to their attacking ways. They're back to their attacking ways, and you need pass rushers to attack. So you give them the best pass rusher out there.
Yeah, you get Key, you pair him up with Tyus Bowser and Tim Williams. That's a scary tandem, scary trio of pass rushers. Plus, they can move Bowser inside as well, and then just have Williams and Key go after the quarterback, because Bowser's great in coverage. Number 11 here, I'm looking through the scenarios here. We can either put the Arizona Cardinals at number 11, or we can put the Jaguars at 11.
Let's go with, that's tough, but I think the Jaguars, because right now I'm not liking their quarterback position. So I think the Jaguars may end up disappointing again, simply offensively. And at that point, I give them Lamar Jackson.
The Jacksonville Jaguars select Lamar Jackson out of Louisville, and he's my number 2 quarterback. That's a good pick for him, good situation for him to be in. And with Leonard Fournette, he'll have a good running game to depend on. He'll have some receivers. So this is probably a very good situation for Lamar Jackson. That's the 4th QB in the top 11, and assuming we get assuming Arizona picks at 12, we could see 5 QBs go in the top 12. But I'm going to see what other teams we have to work with besides Jacksonville. Philadelphia is picking at number 11 in Tony's mock. I have the Cardinals at 7 in my mock, and they're still on the board. So, given the situation here, Cardinals or Eagles, who do you want to put on the board at number 12?
I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I like a lot about what the Eagles are doing in this offseason, and they're looking good. So, if you're looking at the Cardinals right now, you've got to go with the offense, and in that situation, I'm looking at receiver, I'm looking at quarterback as the 2 areas to go, and
there's still a lot of QBs on the board here. I mean, Rosen's there, Mason Rudolph's there. There's a lot of different. Jake Browning is there, so there's still a lot of QB options they could go with here.
There are, and there's no guarantee one of them aren't going to be there in the second round as well. So, in this situation, it's a tough pick. But if you're going to go with pure talent, a guy who could potentially help elevate that offense, and a guy who could be the heir apparent to Larry Fitzgerald, we'll go with Cortland Sutton, wide receiver SMU.
That's a good situation for Sutton because he'll learn how to catch the ball under a veteran like Fitzgerald, and he'll get to play next to him as a rookie. So that's a good situation for Cortland Sutton because at this point, there's issues with all of the remaining QBs on the board. Mason Rudolph, it's just the trajectory on some of his throws. Rosen, it's the attitude, and with Jake Browning, you want to see more velocity. Luke Falk needs to play under center. There's a lot of good QBs left, but they all have something that keeps them from going in the top 15, even though they're all getting hyped. Some of them, including Rosen, are getting hyped up to be top 5, top 10 talents. There's something with each of them that keeps them from being a top 15 QB. So I could definitely see that argument on that end of the spectrum. You're looking at either Tony's mock. He gave them. I have the Vikings picking at number 11 in my mock draft. I'm trying to think. Tony had the Eagles. Do you want to put the Vikings or the Eagles on the clock at number 13 here? Vikings, I'm guessing, since you said they're going to be worse than the Lions.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking Vikings. And the Vikings, they really don't have a lot of huge holes. But what they do have is glaring. So, I'm just curious what they're going to do in a couple of situations, but I don't know. Sorry, there are a couple of noises coming here. But they've got a running back. I don't know what they're going to do with their quarterbacks.
Well, all their quarterbacks are in contract years. Sam Bradford, Lamar Jackson, Case Keenum, they're all in contract years. And they love guys out of UCLA. I mean, Kendricks...
And they've got Bridgewater as well.
Yes.
About him.
So Bridgewater, Bradford, Keenum are all going to be entering contract years this year. They didn't use the fifth-year option on Teddy Bridgewater, so if they don't re-sign any of those QBs, they will need a starting QB. And the Vikings have been known for taking guys out of UCLA. They took Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks out of UCLA. Josh Rosen out of UCLA's there. And I just get this Josh Rosen or Josh Allen vibe with the Vikings if either one of them is available. Otherwise, I think they would take an offensive lineman or a receiver. So, it's a tough situation for the Vikings.
It is. And so, I don't think they take Rosen. Don't think they take Rosen. So, I'm going to look at trying to find a couple guys that could really help them in a lot of situations.
Well, Connor Williams out of Texas is available. He can play offensive tackle, but he may kick inside the guard because his arms are extremely small. So,
and I'm looking at a player that I'm high on, that I really like. May not be the greatest need, but it's a guy who's going to add a lot of talent to the team. And, I don't even know if I want to do that either. I'm going to go with offensive tackle Orlando Brown.
Yeah, that's a good pick. He can be a left tackle. You can move him inside to guard for his first year. But they have a good... They brought in Riley Reiff and Mike Remmers through free agency. Reiff is better at right tackle, and Mike Remmers has no business starting on any offensive line. So this is a good pick for the Vikings at this spot, number 13. The next up, we have the number 14 pick. There's two teams that could be in the running for this pick. The Eagles, the next best team, assuming we put the Lions and Denver in the playoff picture. Next team available is the Buffalo Bills. So it's the Bills or the Eagles. I'm guessing you're leaning Bills here at 14.
Yes, there's a lot to like about the Bills right now. Despite the fact that they're seem to be trying to tank. Not doing a very good job at it. I'm loving what Nate Peterman's doing. Tyrod Taylor went into concussion protocol this week, and Peterman handled himself under that Ravens pass rush beautifully. So, one thing I'm noticing about the Bills is that their offensive line is not holding up as well as expected. So, we're going to go and we're going to give them some offensive line help. We're going to give them Connor Williams.
Yeah, they got Cordy Glenn under contract and Deion Dawkins, but they could get Connor Williams as a guard here because Richie Incognito turns 35 this year, and I would think with the offensive tackle situation secured, they probably look to improve that left guard spot with Incognito's contract status the way it is.
Yeah, and Incognito's not a great guard to begin with. And if something happens at right tackle, Williams can easily take the right tackle. He plays right tackle at
Or
Texas.
you can move Deion Dawkins inside the guard, too.
Yes, you can. So it's always good to have those type of interchangeable guys that can play beside each other. Yeah, in case something happens to the other ones, they're easily kicked out. So, I mean, that I think would be a great situation for them and take care of some obviously glaring weaknesses.
Do you want me to list Williams as a right tackle where they move Dawkins inside the guard, or do you want me to list Williams as a guard?
Let's kick Dawkins inside the guard because he has more experience at guard. So,
all right.
And then keep Williams at right tackle.
Okay, so at this point, I do have the Eagles picking at 16 in my mock draft, and most of the teams, outside of the Lions and the Broncos, who you have in the playoffs, most of the teams on the board are teams that you view as playoff teams, but outside of Philadelphia, some of the other teams in Tony's mock that made the top 16 outside of Philadelphia are Washington, the Saints, and the Carolina Panthers. Those are some of the teams that made the top 16 in Tony's mock that we haven't used yet. Do you see any of those teams, whether it be the Saints, Washington, Carolina, do you see any of those teams picking at this point at number 15? Or even Philadelphia, for that matter.
I could see the Saints and Washington. I could see... So, any of those three teams with the Eagles, I think, could be interchangeable at this point. But we're going to put the Eagles at 16.
You mean 15? This is pick 15.
15?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say the Saints.
So the Saints 15, the Eagles 16?
Yeah.
All right.
And the Saints, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to give them the quarterback out of Oklahoma State, the big man that you like so much, and we're just going to go from there.
Yeah, because Mason Rudolph has the arm, all the tools, but there's accuracy issues and stuff that he needs to correct. He can learn under Breeze and correct that, so that's a good pick for the Saints, and then the Eagles are up at 16.
Yep. And the Eagles at 16, I'm going to give them Saquon Barkley, Penn State.
That's a good pick. I have Geis at 16, but I think both running backs at that point are pretty good as prospects for the Eagles. Number 17 is going to be a tough situation here. Looking at some of the teams at 17, you can see Washington picking there. I'm trying to brainstorm who your playoff teams would be at this point because Steelers is a playoff team. The Titans or the Colts in the AFC South, I'm guessing you only have one of those teams in the playoffs. The Patriots in the East. Chiefs and Broncos are both wild cards, so I'm guessing in your situation the Colts would get in as a wild card by that logic, even if they weren't really a playoff team because you have the Broncos winning the division, you have the Chiefs getting a wild card, you have the Patriots in the playoffs, you probably have the Titans winning the division, and you have the Steelers winning the division. That leaves one opening for either Oakland or the Colts as the final wild card. So you'd have to probably put one of those teams on the outside, I'm guessing, and then from there, I'm trying to think of who we left out in the AFC, because we mentioned the three AFC East teams. We mentioned I don't think we've mentioned the Colts or the Raiders yet, so I think that would be the final AFC team. And then the NFC, we've got Washington is still there. You've got Seattle winning the NFC West. That's a given. Green Bay winning the North. Detroit possibly getting a wild card. Tampa Bay winning the South. Atlanta getting a wild card. Or the Giants or Washington. So that's a tough situation because you've got a lot of teams in the cluster of that NFC wild card hunt, whether it's Detroit, Atlanta. One of those teams is going to have to miss, and that's the team you're going to have picking at 20. I'm guessing it's going to be either Washington or the Raiders here. Probably Washington at 17. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, let's go with Washington. And with Washington, we'd go with Geis at running back. I mean, Washington's had problems with their running game. They've done everything they can so far, short of trying to get Barry Sanders come out of retirement to fix it. They've failed. They need to spend a first-round pick on a running back at some point in time. So, let's go with that one.
Yep, and I believe there's 2 NFC teams left and 1 AFC team left that we can mock here. So, assuming Dallas and the Giants both make the playoffs, Carolina has not picked. So, yeah, Carolina is probably the one team that we're going to put at 18 here, and then you're going to have a really tough decision with the team that misses out in the NFC and the team that misses out in the AFC. But I'm guessing Carolina at 18 is sort of what direction you're leaning here.
Carolina frustrates me to hell because they've got the talent to get to the NFC Championship every year, and they end up screwing it up every year. You know? So, I'll put them here for now, because they'll be able to go either way at some point. And I'm going to go back to one of my favorite guys in the draft right now that I think can do it all on the defensive end. And I'm going to give them cornerback out of Louisville,
Jair Alexander, he's my number 1 cornerback too, and he looked really good on tape against Mike Williams. I was thinking you were going to go Harold Landry for a second, but then I was like, oh, yeah, good thing I wrote down Jair Alexander and I erased the Harold Landry. So Harold Landry is still on the board here at number 19. Since I'm guessing you said the Raiders would miss the playoffs when you said they didn't have a good middle linebacker situation, so they could either get a middle linebacker here at 19, or they could go with a defensive player like Harold Landry to pair with Khalil Mack. That really is a tough decision when you think about it, because if you put a guy like Landry next to Khalil Mack, that's a game changer for your pass rush, but at the same time, you need that middle linebacker so badly in Oakland.
Yeah, that middle linebacker in Oakland is the one thing keeping them from really making a huge push. And so that one is tough only for the fact as to who you actually want to give them at that position. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at a guy it's probably as pro-ready as any linebacker in the draft, from Alabama, middle linebacker Rashaan Evans.
Yeah, I love Rashaan Evans. I popped in his tape last week, and we came away wowed with this guy at Lombardi's Draft Talk, and I think he is that good, and he's so fast and explosive off the edge, it's not even funny how good he is, and he can play anywhere, plug in like Reuben Foster, like Reggie Ragland. He can play anywhere, so Alabama continuing to churn out linebacker after linebacker after linebacker over these past few drafts. And Rashaan Evans is next in line. He's now my number one middle linebacker. I had Micah Kaiser here last week, but Micah Kaiser couldn't execute basic blocks, the Virginia linebacker, so Rashaan Evans at number 19 is a good pick here. And now you're going to have a really tough decision on your hands because you've got two teams in the NFC North, Green Bay, Detroit, two teams in the NFC South, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, and two teams in the NFC East, Dallas and the Giants. And one of those 6 teams has to miss the playoffs. So this is an extremely difficult decision at 20.
We'll go with the Giants.
So the Giants pick at 20, and they miss the playoffs. All right.
Yeah, you sound extremely upset about that.
No, I don't. I was just getting another pencil. Like, I'm writing all your picks down on a lead pencil as we're doing the call, so it looks like I'm taking notes while we upload this podcast to YouTube. So I'm just trying to write all of your picks down so you have like a cheat sheet whenever you decide to upload your first mock draft to the Evolution Network. I'm going to message you the sheet after the show. My writing's really sloppy, though. Maybe I should type the picks instead, but I can retype the picks on my computer, but we'll worry about that later.
I'm actually impressed that you know how to write. It's like, I thought you were just computer. Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. And with that impressive nature, I have to give him the best player available. I don't know how he's still here, but he is. This is beauty of the draft. You get steals, and this is a hell of a steal. I'm giving them Grace's boy, Boston College, Harold Landry, right end.
Yep, sorry Olivier Vernon, sorry Jason Pierre-Paul. One of you guys is going to get cut, and Landry's going to come in and take your job and make Grace happy. So that's that. I'm guessing the Colts are going to be picking here at 21 because they're a team you really don't want in the playoffs, but they just sort of got in here by default as a wild card via a technicality. So I'm guessing them or the Titans would be at 21. Just because of that division. I'm going to put the Colts here. I just feel like that's the team you put here.
Yeah, that situation just... I don't like them being there. At least I think the Titans have... I think the Titans have a better chance at it. Oh, boy. This is not a situation I like, but the Colts are here now. So, what are we going to do with the Colts? Well, good question. Yeah, I love the safety class.
They got Malik Hooker and Clayton Geathers. Vonta Davis is a free agent, but I feel like the Colts are going to re-sign him. So,
yeah, I love the safety class. I love the cornerback class. Not as much the top-heavy cornerbacks, but it's got a lot of depth as it goes down. As it goes down the road. The Colts have had troubles. They've had trouble with their pass rush. They've had trouble, as you said, I think they might have solved at safety.
Yeah.
They've had trouble at corner. They've had trouble on the offensive line. So, it's a tough decision. Easily probably the toughest decision I've had to make so far. And I'm going to go with the best dual lineman, a guy who has played, can play pretty much everywhere across the offensive line. I don't even think dual is a good word for it. I think he's more of a variety offensive lineman than anything at this point. And I'm going to go with the... Oh, come on. I'm going to go with the Pitt offensive tackle, Ryan O'Neal.
Yeah, Brian O'Neal, a very good player. He played right tackle last year. He's moving over to left tackle full-time. He played one start at left tackle for an injured Adam Bisnowati. And this is a pick that I have penciled into my mock draft as well. So it's very fitting. It makes a ton of sense here. And he has a massive frame. He just needs to maybe add a few more pounds of muscle because the arm length, the frame, it checks out. You're looking at a very good high-end right tackle to pair with Anthony Costanzo here at number 21. 22, you've got the Falcons and Lions getting in as wild cards, but you also have the Chiefs getting in as a wild card. And since this is a first mock draft, we'll just have the wild cards picking in 21 through 24 to simplify things for you.
Thank you, since it's way further out than I ever do a mock draft anyway. So we're going to go with the Lions in this situation. And the Lions, I can do a lot with them. I like a lot of their positions. I don't think they have any truly glaring needs.
But they do have a lot of guys in contract years, and I'm pretty certain we're going to break down the Lions on tomorrow's episode of the Evolution Network. Stafford's in a contract year, Ziggy Ansah contract year, Haloti Ngata contract year, Tahir Whitehead, their right outside linebacker, played middle last year, but they drafted Gerard Davis. Whitehead's in a contract year. Glover Quinn, arguably their best defensive back at free safety, he's in a contract year. The Lions aren't going to have the money to bring back all of those guys, so they're probably going to replace one with this pick.
Oh, yeah, and the one I think they're going to end up replacing is another one of a guy I've been trying to fit into this mock and haven't been able to do it yet.
Is that Christian Wilkins out of Clemson?
We've gone over him a couple times on the podcast. I believe we did it last year, and he didn't declare. Armani Watts, free safety, Texas A&M.
Excellent pick. Great value for Detroit at this spot in the late first round. So that's a good pick for them. And I know Jordan Whitehead out of Pittsburgh is considered a first-round prospect, but it's been reported that he's been suspended for the first 3 games of the season after an off-the-field arrest. So Pitt's head coach Pat Narduzzi did suspend Jordan Whitehead, the Pittsburgh safety. That is going to play a role into his draft stock. Probably going to be the biggest reason I bump him out of the first round. But you got Buffalo for picking for Kansas City and Atlanta. I'm guessing we're going to give Buffalo this pick at 23 and put Atlanta at 24.
Yeah. Buffalo.
Yep.
Really? That seems a bit high.
We have the Joey is the Broncos in the playoffs, winning a wild card game. Do you want him to declare the Broncos a loser? I don't think.
Yeah, loser. Take that division.
I'm going to go with a guy here that, once again, may not be the greatest need for Buffalo, but highly talented. And, Chris, I think you have him too low in your mock. I actually think I may have him too low in my mock. Cornerback Minka Fitzpatrick, Alabama.
Great pick.
Mark Suba has Minka Fitzpatrick at number 4 on his top 105. So He's very high on Minka Fitzpatrick. I like Tarvaris McFadden and Jair Alexander better tape-wise, but he's a first-round corner, and he's versatile enough to play safety as well. So he fills a need for what Buffalo wants to do. So that's a good pick.
Yeah, and I know it's not their biggest need, but they, it's something they can upgrade, and Fitzpatrick is one of those guys I look at and it's like, I see star. I see star power right there.
Interesting.
And give him a good system, good school.
Yep, the Falcons are on the board at 24, and with all the first-round safeties on the clock, they're in a terrible situation unless they want to get a guard. They do need a right guard. I don't know if there's any right guards in this draft. Most of the guards are just pure left guards. If they wanted a plug-and-play player like Archie Lewis out of Boise State, who's 6'3", 300 pounds, he's a left tackle, but you could kick him inside to right guard, or you could end up taking a guy like Christian Wilkins, the Clemson defensive tackle, since Poe's on a one-year prove-it deal, and Grady Jarrett went to Clemson, and he'd give that veteran presence that Wilkins needs, and I still think Wilkins is a blue-chip defensive tackle prospect, so he's on the board here at 24, and if you don't think the Falcons are going to extend Poe, you can give him Wilkins here. It's too early to say with all the safeties gone.
Yeah, and I think the Falcons are going to once again go defense, and I'm good. Yeah. Yeah, nice sarcasm. Love it. And there's a guy here that is probably the best all around. I know people are going to hate me for this. The best all around defensive lineman in the draft, as far as being able to rush the passer, stop the run, make tackles for a loss, not only with putting quarterback pressures, get in there for the running game. I'm going to give them Bradley Chubb, North Carolina State.
Interesting. I like this pick. I mean, they've got Takaris McKinley. They've got Vic Beasley. I honestly could see one of them staying at outside linebacker, but Bradley Chubb's versatile enough to play both roles on the defensive line, and he's commanded triple teams. Like, he's that good. Like, Myles Garrett was able to command that, but he struggled against Clemson left tackle Mitch Hyatt, who I'm not very high on, who looked terrible in the 7 games of tape I watched of him. But here we are, 25 through 28, the teams that are in the divisional round. We have I'm guessing you have the Steelers and the Patriots in the AFC title game, just like myself. So that means we've got the Titans and Broncos here. And then in the NFC, you've got the Packers, who are still in it. You've got the Cowboys, who are still in it. They're probably going to be in the NFC title. And you've got Tampa Bay and Seattle. So I'm guessing we're probably going to see Green Bay and Dallas in the 29 through 32 range. And we're going to see New England and Pittsburgh in that range as well, giving us a few teams to work with. Tennessee, Denver, Tampa Bay, and Seattle. I'm guessing those are the 4 teams that you're going to put in this 25 through 28 draft range, Joey.
Man, you're the one that's the biggest playoff projections. So you want to, when it comes to playoff projections, you can run it however you want to with the draft order. I'll just roll with it.
All right, so the Titans or the Broncos, who do you want to put at 25 here?
You think long and hard about that, Joey.
Yeah.
It's not like Ryan's at a bank and he's trying to rob you.
I don't think he has the energy after last night.
I was busy crying after the McGregor fight. Keep going.
Yeah, it's bringing up bad memories here. I am going to go with Denver. I don't like Simeon. But I do like Jake Browning, quarterback.
I'll give that one a subtle golf clap.
Yep, so I believe that's the fifth quarterback. We had Baker Mayfield and Darnold go 1-2 in this draft. Darnold 1, Baker Mayfield of the 49ers at 2. Number 9, the Chargers went Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson was QB4, so the Jaguars at 11. So Jake Browning is now the fifth key quarterback drafted in the first round. So that's pretty cool. So 5 quarterbacks in the top 25. Next pick at number 26, we've got Seattle, Tampa Bay. Who do you want to put here at 26? I mean, you could put Dallas or Green Bay here, but I'm guessing you're probably not going to put one of those teams at 26. Who do you want to put here, an NFC team?
I'm leading Seattle. And what are you going to do with Seattle? Well, let's, thinking long and hard about Seattle right now because
they do need a left tackle.
They do.
There's 2 good ones on the board. Archie Lewis out of Boise State, who can maintain his blocks for a really long period. The other guy is a local kid out of Washington named Trey Adams, who Charlie Campbell has in his top 5, which I think is a little bit early, but sources love what he did versus Alabama. So, and he's a local, so it's fitting pick.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Trey Adams. I love what he's done, how he's protected Jake Browning. It's like he's one of those guys, when you're watching tape of one person, you look and you're like, you see this other guy come up, and I think that's what got Trey Adams noticed, is that people were watching film of Jake Browning, and they're like, who's this kid protecting his blind side? Doing really, really well. And I think Trey Adams is a guy who Seattle would love to have.
Yeah, that's a great pick for them. And then the Tennessee Titans are on the clock at number 27. There are a few positions they could target. Both of the 34 out middle linebackers, Cameron Smith, Malik Jefferson, they're both still on the board at this point in the late first round. So the Titans could go with an outside linebacker. Most of the safeties outside of Whitehead, who got suspended the first 3 games, are gone. I'm guessing you're going to give them an inside linebacker, or maybe Archie Lewis as a guard, because the Titans could use some interior offensive line help. They could also get Mason Cole out of Michigan as a center, so there's definitely a few options they could go after here. This is a tough spot to project for the Titans, though.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Malik Jefferson. I like Jefferson. I was actually thinking about giving him last pick. I was actually thinking about getting him to Denver just because of Ryan. But Jefferson, athletic guy, come in, step in right away, be a productive player, and I think he would be great for the middle of that defense.
All right. Only one team will be denied admission to the NFC Championship. We have Dallas, Tampa Bay, and Green Bay. One of these teams must be denied admission to the NFC Championship, and that team will be on the clock at number 28. Who's it going to be, Joey?
Tampa Bay.
And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock here. Tony Mario, our diehard Buccaneers fan, he sent me highlights of last night's preseason game. He talked about how awful the left tackle situation is and how Tampa Bay needs to either upgrade that or get another defensive end. So, what?
And I'm going to do just that with upgrading the left tackle. And because, let's face it, he was abused. He was abused bad. And left tackle, guy I like, saw him last year. Thought he's a pretty good player. Look for him to improve quite a bit this year. It's Mitch Hyatt, Clemson, left tackle.
The Buccaneers do not have good history with Clemson players. See Gaines, Adams, and that other guy they drafted in 2011.
Well, let's put it this way. The Browns don't have history with any college player, and they've done pretty well in the last 2 years. So, with Buccaneers...
Like, did they make the playoff?
Yeah.
Not yet. They got the youngest roster in the league for the last 2 years. I mean, let them grow up a little bit. Jeez.
But they have our G3, Joey.
Oh, please. You want me to throw up my pizza?
All right, so we're here. We're finally at the final 4 picks in Joey's mock draft here. We have the AFC Championship, the Steelers and the Patriots. The NFC Championship in Joey's projected mock draft is the Packers and the Cowboys. Which one of those 4 teams would you like to put at number 29? Who's going to be our first conference champion, and who's going to be the first team at 29?
I'm putting the Pittsburgh Steelers at 29.
Why is that, Joey?
Because I think the Patriots beat them.
Fair enough.
Even without Edelman, yeah, I agree. I mean, they still have Cooks, they still have Hogan, they still have Amendola, they still have Gronkowski, Dwayne, and Allen. So even though the Edelman injury hurts the Patriots, it doesn't really hurt them that much. They have to lose somebody like Tom Brady or Nate Soldier or Hightower or one of the defensive ends just to be considered that suspect against a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I agree with you. That's a good spot for Pittsburgh to be in. I have them at 30 myself, and I think inside linebacker is the big need with Pittsburgh. But one of the things we've heard about Cameron Smith is he got suspended for the first half. He got ejected for a targeting thing against Penn State, and he's projected to have anywhere between a 4.68 and a 4.84 40-yard dash time. So I could see Pittsburgh shying away from Cameron Smith out of USC. And so if they didn't take an inside linebacker, what position would they address at this spot? Quinn Blanding is great at dropping back into coverage, but he can't win his blocks. So not Quinn Blanding, this Virginia safety, Micah Kaiser. But what do you think Pittsburgh does here at 29?
I'm going to... Now, Pittsburgh has a few options. I know they've done some good things lately with the draft on defense, especially with their linebackers. But at the same time, I think and there are a few areas I'm looking at with the Steelers right now, man. Few areas, few guys, and a guy I saw last year, that scheme fit notwithstanding. Okay, I'm gonna go. Might be a little bit controversial here, but they're trying to convince Ben Roethlisberger to stay. The only way you're going to keep Ben Roethlisberger on that roster for another year or two is to keep him clean. We're going to go with left guard Boise State Archie Lewis.
He can play left tackle too, but he's 6'3", 300 pounds, and he's versatile enough to play all 5 spots on the offensive line. So you think he's going to kick inside to guard with that frame?
I think he'll kick inside the guard because a lot of the pressure that the Steelers gets right up the middle. So they need that inside presence.
Yeah, and Lewis can play all 5 spots on the O-line. I've emphasized that a lot. And the Packers need a guard as well, so the Steelers are basically blocking the Packers from getting a guard here. So that's another big component as well. But the Packers may not pick at 30.
Doesn't like him blocked.
Yeah, the Packers and Cowboys, one of them's going to pick at 30. I'm guessing it's going to be Green Bay. And you're going to put...
Yeah, it's going to be Green Bay. I picked this Super Bowl a while back. Didn't pick how they got there, but I picked the Super Bowl.
So did I, and so did Kerm. We all picked the Patriots and the Cowboys in last week's episode.
Yeah, and for them, I'd say I'm going to get the Packers, a player I really like. We're going to give them Auden Tate, wide receiver, Florida State.
Yeah, Auden Tate is my big riser this year. I mean, Riley Audman posted his tape on Twitter, and even though he doesn't have a lot of reception statistically, this is a guy, tape-wise, that I fell in love with last year in terms of how good they were on tape. And they're definitely a riser, in my opinion, as somebody who could really stand out this year. And Florida State's offense was tailor-geared towards their other receiver they had last year, Travis Rudolph, and it was tailor-geared toward mainly Dalvin Cook at the running back position. They also had some 2 tight end sets. So the offense was tailor-geared towards Rudolph and Cook. This year, the offense is going to be tailor-geared a little bit more towards Auden Tate. So you should see his biggest and possibly his best season yet at Florida State.
And the next pick, I'm going to go New England with the next one. We're going to have New England losing in the Super Bowl.
All right.
And then where am I going to go with that one? Well, Brady's not going to play forever. Same time, you'd like him to play as long as he can play.
And if you take a quarterback, you can give the quarterback a 5th-year player option. That's the other thing. That's the loophole the NFL created when they...
Well, how do you maximize Tom Brady for as long as you can? And what do the Patriots have a history of doing? Small-town guys. What does Brady like? Small-town receivers.
Are you going with Jake Weineke, the South Dakota State wide receiver that I absolutely love on tape?
Absolutely.
Wow, I guessed it correctly.
Yes, you did. That's impressive.
Well, I really love his tape, too.
1,400 yards.
I think he's this year's Cooper Kupp. He's better, he's bigger, he's faster.
Yeah. 6'4", 218. He's got the body. That's somebody, and that's the type of player Bill Belichick likes. Small school guy, he's got chip on his shoulder. Go with him.
I love the pick. I don't know if he'll get picked in the first round, but I love the pick because I'm a huge Weineke fan. I think after Christian Kirk, he's the one receiver with the highest ceiling and room for development, but he's a small school guy, so we'll see what happens there. And number 32, the Dallas Cowboys. Kerm couldn't make today's podcast, but I'm sure he'll be happy if they are the team hoisting the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year. And the Dallas Cowboys, they're up on the clock at 32. They're world champions. And Jerry Jones lives long enough to hoist a 3rd Lombardi Trophy, or a 4th, because he was part of 3 Super Bowl winning teams in the 90s. So this would be his 4th championship. Who do the Cowboys get?
Well, we're going to make Kerm's life at this point. Okay? Cowboys win the Super Bowl, then they turn around and they draft Alabama wide receiver Calvin Ridley.
Awesome. I know a lot of people have top 5 grades on Calvin Ridley. I'm not as high on him, but he's an Alabama guy. We're going to make Kerm's life. Yeah, so I can't argue with the logic here. It's an excellent pick, and that's Joseph Potter's first-round mock draft. I'll read through the picks one more time before we get Ryan's thoughts on this mock and let him chime in as well. Number 1, the Jets, Sam Darnold, quarterback, USC. Number 2, San Francisco 49ers, Baker Mayfield, quarterback, Oklahoma. The Bears took Christian Kirk as a weapon with the extension of Charles Leno Jr. At left tackle. The Rams got McGlinchey as a right tackle, but they can move him over to left tackle. The Bengals got Derwin James out of Florida State as a safety. The Browns went with a safety as well, Ronnie Harrison. Then the Browns picked again at 7. They went Okorafor as a right tackle. The Dolphins went Quentin Nelson, left guard out of Notre Dame. The Chargers went with Josh Allen as a successor to Phillip Rivers. The Ravens got Arden Key. The Jaguars got Lamar Jackson. I know you love that pick, Ryan. The Cardinals got Cortland Sutton. The Vikings got Orlando Brown out of Oklahoma. The Bills got Connor Williams as a right tackle, kicking Dawkins inside the left guard. The Saints got Mason Rudolph. The Eagles got Saquon Barkley. The Washington Redskins got Darius Geis. The Carolina Panthers took Jair Alexander out of Louisville. Rashawn Evans, the Oakland Raiders middle linebacker, fell to the Alabama linebacker, Rashawn Evans, Alabama. He went to the Raiders. Harold Landry, Boston College defensive end, went to the Giants. Brian O'Neill out of Pittsburgh went to the Colts. Armani Watts, Texas A&M, free safety, went to the Lions. Minka Fitzpatrick out of Alabama went to the Bills. Bradley Chubb, North Carolina State defensive end, went to the Falcons. Jake Browning went to the Broncos as QB5. Trey Adams, Washington, went to the Seattle Seahawks. Malik Jefferson went to the Tennessee Titans at 27. Mitch Hyatt went to the Buccaneers as a left tackle at 28. Pittsburgh took Archie Lewis as a left guard at 29. They could possibly move him to left tackle if he can increase his frame at some point if Villanueva doesn't stick around. I think he'll stick around for at least another year. And then you've got Auden Tate, the Green Bay Packers wide receiver, Florida State's wide receiver, going to Packers at number 30 because George Shipley, Randall Cobb, they're both getting older. Jake Weinecke, South Dakota State wide receiver, who I love on tape, goes to the Patriots at 31. And then the Cowboys get Calvin Ridley at 32. So that's Joey's mock draft. Some of the guys that were left out included Tarvaris McFadden, Florida State corner. Bo Scarborough out of Alabama made it to day 2. Josh Rosen is still there in day 2. So at that point, we could see a bidding war where a team moves up for Rosen. I'm guessing it'd probably be the Cardinals because they were one team that really didn't look at the quarterback position as well as Minnesota. I'm guessing one of those teams would probably try to make a huge trade with the Jets to move up because the Jets need help everywhere. And I could see those two teams going in a bidding war to move up for Rosen at that spot. But very good mock draft overall by Joey. Any thoughts on this mock draft, Ryan, before we get to some of the picks, some of the topics? I didn't really dive into my mock draft in depth because I wanted to clear some things up before Joey went to work. I know we broke down Tony's mock last week in depth, but what are your thoughts on this mock, Ryan?
Pretty good for the most part, except for that one part where he put Sam Darnold at number 1.
I know you have Lamar Jackson at 1, but everybody else has Darnold at 1. It's like a game of politics. We can't win. Even if we dislike Darnold and have reservations about him, Tony and Mark both have him as the number 1 overall player on their board. It's a game of politics. We can't win the game of politics. We're basically stuck in this situation, like with our president, who shall remain nameless.
Not even politics with the pick. It was basically you have a guy with tremendous upside, but also a tremendous downside. You have the Jets, who have no upside. And so, are you going to take a chance on a guy who has the upside to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? Or are you going to take a chance on somebody who could be a very good one? Because right now, the Jets have nothing. They have no upside. They have no future. They have nothing. Give them the guy
like a high school counselor, Joey. You have
believe me. Yeah, well, as a former coach, I've told many teams that their opponents have no future, so I'm good at it. It's a very big motivational tool. So the Jets have no future. Sam Darnold, you're either going to give them a future, or, well, I feel sorry for you, dude.
I mean, I guess I'd be more upset in Jackson than what I do with Arnold, to be completely honest. I was actually surprised that you didn't put Cortland Sutton ahead of Christian Kirk, too.
Well, you had Kirk ahead of Sutton in your mock draft. You had Kirk at number 2 to Chicago and Sutton at number 19 to Carolina. I know you like Sutton better, but there's the issue with his catch radius. Like, he spreads his hands out too far when making the catch. And you can follow Ryan on Twitter at DraftProfessor. But this is the thing. Matt Waldman made an excellent point when watching his tape. He'll spread his hands out a little too far, and then he'll try to tap the football Like, he'll try to clap his hands when he goes in for the catch. That's a huge red flag for NFL teams. It's sort of like the Braylon Edwards effect, and that's why teams are going to shy away from him. And if he goes to a team where he has Mitchell Trubisky or Brian Hoyer as his quarterback, Courtland Sutton is set up for failure. Now, if he goes to a team like the Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers, the Washington Redskins, he has a chance to succeed. If he went to the Vikings, I think he would fail in that situation because the Vikings just never get it right with receivers. Troy Williamson, they haven't gotten it right since Randy Moss. So I think in that situation, if Sutton were to go to Minnesota, Chicago, San Francisco, perhaps even Cleveland, I could see him failing in those scenarios. But I could see him succeeding on the right team, like an Arizona or a Carolina or any of these other teams, even Philadelphia.
I wanted to get Joey's opinion as to why he had put Christian Kirk ahead, not necessarily.
You had him ahead too, though.
Completely. Huh? Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying I don't. I just wanted to see what Joey's reasoning for it was.
Big play potential. I think Kirk has the better big play potential than Sutton.
Like big play potential, like he'll come up with a big catch, or he'll come up with a catch and break out for yards for first down.
He'll come out. He'll get 10 yards down the field, come up with a catch, and he'll be able to break it out more. He'll be able to take a 10-yard catch and make it into a 20-yard gain.
That's what I see with Kirk as well. Because, like, he'll take a 7-yard play, he'll turn it into an 18-yard play. He'll take a 10-yard play, he'll turn it into a 20 to 25-yard play. And his agility is just off the charts for a wide receiver.
Yeah, and that is basically the only reason. I like most of Sutton's athletic ability better. I like his body as far as a receiver goes better. I like a lot of things better. But when you add in that ability to your quarterback's being rushed, you get him on a 5-yard out, it's 12 to go, and he ends up on a 5-yard catch getting 15 yards. That's where I'm looking right now, is the guy who can get that 15 yards on a 5-yard catch on third down.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I also feel like Kirk's the more polished route runner, but if you're looking for somebody who can jump in the air, somebody who has the better body, somebody who can surpass him if they put their intangibles together, that's probably Sutton. He probably has the best mental makeup to do that at the wide receiver position.
I guess I have Sutton a little bit higher as far as my own personal rankings go, but as far as the mock draft goes, I think Christian Kirk actually gets picked ahead because I think he has better hands. I think the better playmaker ability. I like Courtland Sutton a little bit more, actually, just because I feel like he has the bigger body type, so because of that, he's going to be able to create more plays in the NFL.
We'll see. It's very early in the process, so there's a lot to like.
Well, I agree with you on, the ability to make overall plays. I'm just basing it for that situation and for that team on who is going to be able to get the most yards after catch. Because, you get Trubisky. Trubisky's going to throw all those 5, 10 yarders. He's probably not going to throw a lot of 20 yarders. So who's going to be able to get that 20 yards when that 20 yards is needed on that situation? And that's basically it. It's that situation, that one skill, the catch, you can get the yards after the catch, that would put him ahead in that scenario with that team.
Yep. And my mock draft, I'm probably going to keep the top 3 the same. Even with the Charles Leno extension, I still think they'd get McGlinchey as a right tackle because they can save $5.5, $6.5 million if they cut Bobby Massey after this year. And then Kirk at the 49ers at 3. Derwin James went to the Bengals at 4. I had Harold Landry at a Boston College going to the Lions at 5. Arden Key to the Ravens at 6. Lamar Jackson went to the Cardinals at 7. I put Ronnie Harrison on the Dolphins at 8, even though I highly considered Nelson as well. Okorafor, I put him on the Browns at 9. I gave the Vikings Quentin Nelson as a guard at number 10 because I felt like he was the best blue chip talent. Jaguars, I pissed off a lot of Jaguars fans last weekend. I gave the Jaguars Micah Kaiser, the Virginia linebacker, because he was great in coverage. He had double-digit tackles, and I just figured this is a blue-chip linebacker. But the thing I missed on Kaiser is Micah Kaiser is terrible at winning blocks as a linebacker, so he might drop to the second round because of that. So that's the thing I really missed on when evaluating him last week. And I pissed off a ton of Jaguars fans by giving them a linebacker over a quarterback or an offensive lineman. So I apologize to all the Jaguars fans that I pissed off. Moving on to number 12.
No, he doesn't. I don't know if he means it.
What? Are you saying my apology isn't sincere?
That sounded
Your
more
integrity is
Lisa-
questionable.
Like Lisa Donovan sat back behind the scenes and was like, Chris, apologize. And you're like, no.
But then Lisa threatened him, and he's like, "Yes, ma'am, I'm so sorry." That's what he did mean.
We might need to keep in touch with Lisa more often for situations to get Chris to do stuff.
But yeah, I really do apologize for giving the Jaguars a middle linebacker this week. The Rams, Connor Williams, Texas right tackle.
And that comes from Lisa Donovan, remember.
She is our new producer this year, but she did not order me to apologize, regardless of what jokes you want to make about the situation. It's not a corporate apology.
Lisa
It's just
is his master. Just go with it, people.
the Los Angeles Chargers, Christian Wilkins out of Clemson, the defensive tackle. Buffalo Bills, Jair Alexander, Louisville cornerback. Denver Broncos at 15, Rashawn Evans, the Alabama middle linebacker for Denver. And then I gave the Eagles Darius Geis. And then back half, the first round of my mock draft, back half, we start at 17. I have Barkley going to the Browns. Clellan Ferrell out of Clemson, he's a sophomore redshirt. I have him going to the Saints. Some people think he's going to declare in 2019, not this year. Cortland Sutton, I have him to the Panthers at 19, where Ryan had him. I gave Washington Archie Lewis as a guard, because they do need that left guard, and they are losing some guys like right tackle, Morgan Moses, center Spencer Long to free agency. So they could get Archie Lewis and plug him in at any one of those positions. Trey Adams is my number 5 ranked offensive tackle, and I have him going to the Seattle Seahawks at number 21. So that's something I have with at that pick, that situation. So we'll see what happens with those picks anyway. So then you've got number 22, and number 22 with the 10. I believe it's the Titans. Titans are 23, I think, but I'm just double checking something really quickly here. Yeah, I forgot to put an end link after the an end extension. But the Raiders, I gave the Raiders Cameron Smith, a USC linebacker. I know his speed does not add up to first round speed, but you think of the Raiders, you think of Pac-12 linebackers. Jack Del Rio, Ken Norton Jr., they both have ties to the Pac-12. And Reggie McKenzie will ultimately have the final say, but this is a player that just screams future Oakland Raider, or future Las Vegas Raider for that matter. So there's something about Cameron Smith out of USC that just screams future Raider. Titans, I went with Armani Watts to the Titans. I gave the Packers Tarvaris McFadden. I love Tarvaris McFadden's tape out of Florida State. So I gave the Packers him at corner since I felt the value was too good to ignore. I gave the Bills Auden Tate at 25. Jordan Whitehead out of Pittsburgh. I gave him to the Falcons, but I did not know about the suspension that he received until this week. Brian O'Neill will probably be the first player out of Pittsburgh drafted now. He went to the Colts. Orlando Brown went to the Buccaneers at 28. I have him going a little bit lower than where Joey has him. I have Equanimous St. Brown, the sophomore redshirt out of Notre Dame, going to the Giants at 29 because Brandon Marshall's a short-term option, and all the left tackles are off the board. Pittsburgh went Malik Jefferson at 30. They got the final piece they need to take down the Patriots. Bradley Chubb went to the Cowboys at 31 to pair with Taco Charlton, and the Patriots won the Super Bowl, and they got Minka Fitzpatrick. So my mock draft and Joey's mock draft, there's some differences, but there's also a lot of similarities. as to where we've been thinking on the same page and stuff. So those are our mock drafts. Ryan, do you want to go over any picks in your mock draft before we call it a show? Because on Friday, Ryan and I will be back at 2 p.m. with Tracy Thomas. We'll break down the Florida State-Alabama game for next Saturday. We can also recap the MMA fight last night, which Floyd Mayweather won in the 10th round. I'm happy about that because I just didn't like the Sue-Conor McGregor war heading into the fight. I mean, Mayweather just seemed like a more laid-back family man, so I was rooting for him. I'm kind of glad he won the fight last night, so we'll see what happens.
As far as any kind of key points of my mock draft go, I mean, other than the fact that I think that Jackson's the number 1 quarterback, and then honestly, it put Malik Jefferson, the Texas linebacker, at number 2, just because he can pretty much plug in and into any team, really. I mean, he's basically one of the more overall better linebackers I've seen in the draft. He's big, hard-hitting, can create plays in the backfield, too.
Yeah, I mean, we agree on a lot of different things in terms of skill set, positions. There's a lot we agree on, and our NFL draft game is now at 64 players. I do want to update the top 100 of that, but first I'm going to focus on updating the draft order for next week. So there's a lot going on. We've got 5 NHL season previews up on Draft Utopia. I've just finished the number 6 one for the Dallas Stars, which will be set to be up a little bit later after this podcast. And after that, I'm going to try to get the Arizona Coyotes one up because I'm not going to have time to do all this once football season starts. So I'm trying to get as much of this out of the way as possible. And next week, on Friday, we'll talk about some of the college games. And then Sunday, I guess next Sunday, we'll talk about some of the Week 1 games and what kind of draft implications these games had. Because I know you and Joey are both excited about college football being back next week, or this upcoming week, starting on Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday. I think Ohio State plays Indiana on Thursday as well. So that's a game we can talk about on the Friday podcast as well. We can recap that game and talk about some of the players, some of their stocks, and introduce the brand new Money Watch feature. It's like CBS Money Watch. It's going to be called Draft Watch. It's going to be presented by Fanspeak, and it's going to give people a better idea of where we put players on our monthly boards that we send to Fanspeak. So it'll be the Draft Watch instead of the CBS Money Watch. It'll be the Draft Watch. We'll take a player whose stock goes up one week and then mention another player whose stock's going down. I'm not going to sound like Paul Kramer, Joey. I'm going to do my best to remain professional. I'm not going to sound like Paul Kramer, okay?
And that's good. And
you thought I was going to sound like him for a little bit. You were nervous.
Maybe a little. And everybody, remember tomorrow, I don't have a time set yet, but on the Evolution Network, we're going to have an extra long show for you. We're going to go over several teams. We're going to go over some rookies. And on Draft Outlook, we've got a lot of exciting things lined up for you. And yeah, because I've got a lot of stuff going on tomorrow, so time will be determined. It will probably be around noon, somewhere around there. And we're going to have a lot of things. We're going to go over quite a few teams, and we're really going to make some stuff happen tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be fun, and I'm sure Chris will be there. Ryan, you're welcome. So,
yeah, I can give you Joey's call-in number if you want to call into that show tomorrow. It'll be 10 a.m. your time on the Mountain Time, Ryan.
All right, maybe. It's going to depend.
It depends on the time and the situation.
Depends on whether he wakes up from tonight's events.
Or it depends on whether he's not in the library, because sometimes Ryan will go to the library to do research, like to do draft write-ups, and if like he's on his phone in the library, they'll make him turn it off, or it'll be like that game on MTV, like Silent Library. It'll be like that, and Ryan's on the phone calling into Joey's show, and it's like Silent Library, and everyone's just...
Yeah, Ryan's at the library doing draft stuff. I'm at the bar doing draft stuff, so it all works out.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah, so, with that said...
This is our 2018 NFL Draft Preview. We'll be back next Friday. So long from the Utopia of Sports.
Okay. Have a wonderful
Call
weekend.
recording has been completed.
Yeah, that's our show. We're off.
That was